I regret to inform you that we are terminating your employment, effective immediately. These documents outline the terms of your severance package.
Regrettably, we're going to have to let you go. This outlines the severance details and your next steps.
I understand. Thank you.
This is a serious matter, and we need to see immediate improvement in your metrics.
I am fully aware of the situation, and I am committed to resolving this effectively. I need to understand why my complaint wasn't addressed sooner.
We are addressing it now.
This isn't the place for this discussion.
Your performance this quarter has fallen short of expectations. If we don't see immediate improvement, we'll have to reconsider your position.
Despite the circumstances, we appreciate your service.
Thank you. I wish the team well.
Ensure the handover is completed by the end of the day.
We asked you to come here today to discuss your recent performance.
This decision is final, but details regarding your departure are in this envelope.
I understand. I'll review it and be in touch regarding the next steps.
We need you to sign this document today to acknowledge receipt.
I understand, but can I review it first?
Signing only acknowledges receipt, not agreement.
I've explained the situation regarding the Q3 targets. We need to reallocate resources immediately. Otherwise, the Q4 launch is at risk.
The first thing Jordan Miles noticed was the silence. Riverton Distribution never did silence. Forklifts beeping, phones ringing, somebody laughing too loud by the vending machines. But when Brad Whitman said, "Close the door," the noise outside snapped off like a switch. Brad didn't sit. He stood by the window, backlit, a supervisor-shaped shadow. On his desk lay a manila envelope. Square to the edge like it had been measured, Jordan's palms went damp. "This is just a conversation," Brad said. "Nothing to get upset about." Jordan nodded once, slow. "Then why is that envelope here?" Brad smiled the way people smile at a child who's about to learn a lesson. "Because I'm trying to keep things clean. You've been difficult. Not a good fit." Difficult meant loud. Difficult meant threatening. Difficult meant black. In rooms where everyone else got to be driven. "I hit every target," Jordan said, careful with his tone like it was glass. "I fix problems before they become emergencies." Brad's eyes slid over him, assessing, dismissing. "Numbers aren't everything. People feel uncomfortable around you." "Who?" Jordan asked. Brad's voice dropped, gentle as a warning. One knife-clean line that made Jordan's stomach turn. "Don't make me say out loud." The fluorescent lights buzzed. Jordan thought of rent, of his daughter's backpack by the door, of how quickly a life could be labeled and discarded. Brad pushed the envelope forward, inch by inch. "Sign, and you walk out with dignity. Fight me and you'll be escorted." A knock at the door, sharp, timed. Brad called, "Come in." The door opened. A woman wearing an HR badge stepped into the frame, and behind her, Malik from security glanced in, already waiting. Monday morning tasted like burnt coffee and copier heat. Jordan Miles slipped into Riverton Distribution with his badge out, the way security demanded. The lobby TV ran the local news on mute, an anchor talking under a headline about workplace culture. Jordan felt the phrase like a bruise. "Morning, Jay," Malik called from the desk. "Morning," Jordan answered, smiling because smiling kept people calm. Upstairs, the warehouse office hummed with printers and the dull thud of pallets. Jordan opened the routing dashboard. 27 outbound loads, 3 drivers already texting, until his email refreshed. Subject: quick check-in, 9:15 a.m., Brad Whitman. Brad never scheduled check-ins. He did shoulder pats and hallway drive-bys that felt like ownership. Tanya from billing leaned over the divider. "You okay?" "Yeah." Jordan lied. Probably metrics. At 9:12, Jordan walked the corridor. The carpet swallowed footsteps, but not his breathing. Through frosted glass, Brad's silhouette stood waiting, not sitting. A performance. "Come in," Brad said before Jordan knocked. Brad Whitman was mid-40s, polo tucked too tight, logo stretched across his chest. Behind him hung a frame quote in cursive, "Hard work beats talent." "Close the door," Brad said. The latch clicked. The room shrank. "Sit." Brad pointed to the chair. Jordan sat, hands visible on his thighs. Brad's desk was clean, no laptop, no papers. Just space for a decision. Brad folded his arms. "We need to talk about fit." Fit for what? Jordan asked. For the team. Brad's voice softened like he was being kind. I've been getting feedback. People feel uncomfortable. Jordan kept his face still. Whose people? You know how it is. Multiple sources. Brad smiled. Communication style. Tone. You come off intense. Jordan leaned forward a fraction. Give me an example. A specific incident. Brad's smile twitched. Don't get defensive. That's exactly what I mean. I'm asking for clarity, Jordan said. Brad tapped a pen, slow and loud. Your numbers are fine. This isn't just numbers. It's attitude, culture. Jordan tasted citrus cleaner, sharp in the air. He thought of staying late last week to fix a routing error that would have stranded a driver in snow. Brad had read the praise email and said nothing. Are you saying I'm not doing my job? Jordan asked. No, Brad spread his hands. But morale matters. Retention matters. Jordan waited. Brad sighed like Jordan was a burden. Sometimes people like you need course correction before things go formal. Jordan's spine locked. People like me? High energy. Strong opinions. Brad said quickly. I want HR, Jordan said. Brad's eyes narrowed. HR doesn't need to be in every conversation. If this is about my job, Jordan said, HR should be. Brad leaned back. I'm empowered to make decisions, but I'll give you an opportunity. 30-day improvement plan, or we make it easier. Easier how? Brad slid a manila envelope onto the desk. Voluntary resignation. Severance. Clean transition. No drama. Jordan didn't touch it. His fingers curled into his pant leg. This is sudden, Jordan said. What changed? Brad's gaze flicked away. There was a situation Friday. Evan, the new hire, yelling on the dock, squaring up on a driver. Jordan stepping between them, voice low, palms open. Evan rolling his eyes. Later, Brad laughing with Evan by the vending machines. That situation? Jordan asked. Brad nodded. You challenged a colleague in front of others. Undermining. I stopped a fight, Jordan said. Brad's tone sharpened. See? Always a justification. It's exhausting. Jordan breathed in slowly. Is there documentation? A write-up? We're talking, Brad said. Don't make it adversarial. Jordan glanced at the clock. 9:21. His shift was bleeding away into this office. He pictured his daughter's glittery keychain on the kitchen chair, waiting to be fixed. He pictured rent. I want HR present, Jordan said again. Fine. Brad stood. But dragging this out won't change the outcome. Jordan rose, then put it in writing. Brad leaned forward, using the inch of height like a threat. Watch your tone. Jordan's hands shook, but his voice didn't. My tone is professional. My rights are real. Brad's smile turned small and sharp. We'll see. Jordan walked back to his desk with the envelope's weight pressing on his chest, even though he hadn't taken it. Tanya looked up. What happened? A meeting, Jordan said, because saying more felt like lighting a match near gas. Jordan opened a new email. Hands still trembling, he typed. Elaine, Brad requested an HR meeting at 10. I'm concerned this is disciplinary. Please confirm the agenda and my right to have a witness present. He stared at the sentence, hearing Brad's voice. Watch your tone. Then he hit send. The whoosh felt too small for what it cost him, like tossing a pebble in a storm. And hoping it hit, a new calendar invite appeared. Subject, HR Jordan Miles, 10 a.m. Organizer, Brad Whitman. Attendee, Elaine Park, HR business partner. Jordan stared at Elaine's name until the letters blurred. In the dark reflection of his monitor, he saw his own face, steady, controlled, and behind it, Brad crossing the corridor toward HR, moving like someone who already owned the ending. The HR conference room smelled like lemon wipes and old carpet glue. A round table, 3 chairs, a box of tissues positioned exactly in the middle, like an offering. Jordan arrived early and chose a seat with his back to the wall. At 9:59, the door opened. Elaine Park stepped in first, tablet tucked to her chest, expression neutral in the way only trained neutrality could be. Brad followed, relaxed, coffee in hand, like this was his room and they were guests. Morning. Elaine said, "Thank you both for being punctual." Brad smiled. "Always." Jordan nodded. Morning. Elaine gestured. "Let's sit." Brad dropped into his chair, crossing one ankle over his knee. Jordan noticed how his body took up space without apology. Elaine remained standing a moment longer, eyes flicking between them, measuring. "This meeting is to discuss concerns raised regarding workplace conduct," Elaine said, finally sitting. "Jordan, this is not a termination meeting." Brad cleared his throat. "Yet." Elaine shot him a look, quick, controlled. Brad raised his hands. "Just clarifying expectations." Jordan folded his hands together, fingers interlaced tight enough to hurt. "I was told there were concerns. I've asked for specifics." Elaine nodded. "That's fair. Brad, can you outline the issues?" Brad leaned forward, elbows on the table. "We've had feedback. Multiple team members have expressed discomfort with Jordan's communication style." "Who?" Jordan asked. Elaine lifted a hand. "We don't usually disclose names to protect." "I can't address something if it's faceless," Jordan said. His voice was calm, practiced. "I'm being accused of making people uncomfortable. That's serious." Brad shrugged. "See? Defensive." Jordan turned to Elaine. "Is asking for details considered defensive?" Elaine hesitated, just long enough to notice. "No, but we also need to create a safe environment for feedback." Jordan exhaled slowly. "I've never been written up. My performance reviews are strong. I want to know what changed." Brad smiled thinly. "Friday?" Jordan looked back at him. "The dock incident?" "You undermined a co-worker," Brad said, "in front of others." "I intervened when voices were raised," Jordan said, "to de-escalate." Elaine tapped her tablet. "Jordan, can you walk me through what happened?" Jordan did, step by step. The yelling, the driver backing away, Evan puffing his chest, Jordan placing himself between them, palms open. The way the room had gone quiet, not afraid of him, but waiting. When he finished, Brad let out a small laugh. "That's one version." Elaine frowned. "Brad, what's your version?" Brad leaned back. Jordan has a way of reframing. What others saw was him taking control, talking down to Evan, creating tension. Jordan's jaw tightened. "Who are others?" Brad spread his hands again. "Warehouse staff, office staff. It's a pattern." "A pattern needs documentation," Jordan said. Elaine nodded slowly. "Do we have written complaints?" Brad shifted. "Not formal ones. People don't always feel safe putting things in writing." Jordan glanced at Elaine. "But I'm supposed to defend myself against things that don't exist on paper." Elaine didn't answer right away. When she did, her tone was careful. "Sometimes HR has to act before issues escalate." Brad seized the opening. "Exactly. That's why I recommended a performance improvement plan. Coaching, clear expectations." Jordan leaned forward. "Or a resignation." Brad's smile returned. "An option?" Elaine looked between them. "Jordan, no one is forcing you to resign." Jordan met her eyes. An envelope was slid across the desk. Elaine's lips pressed together. "Brad." "It was an offer," Brad said. "A courtesy." Jordan laughed once, sharp. A courtesy would have been a conversation before consequences. Silence settled. Thick. Elaine cleared her throat. "Let's focus on solutions." "Brad, what are the expectations you believe Jordan isn't meeting?" Brad ticked them off. "Tone, approachability, team harmony." Jordan nodded. "Can you give me a measurable example of tone?" Brad's eyes flashed. "See, this is what I mean." Elaine interjected. "Brad, specifics help." Brad sighed theatrically. "Fine." He questions decisions. Publicly. "I ask clarifying questions," Jordan said. "In meetings where decisions affect safety and deadlines, people interpret that as hostility," Brad said. Jordan turned to Elaine. "Is asking questions against policy?" Elaine glanced at her tablet. "No." Brad leaned in. It's about how it makes people feel. Jordan's voice dropped. Whose feelings matter more than facts? Brad's smile vanished. Don't push me. Elaine straightened. We're not escalating. Jordan, here's what I propose. We draft a PIP outlining communication goals. 30 days. Weekly check-ins. And if I don't agree? Jordan asked. Elaine hesitated again. Then we evaluate next steps. Brad nodded, which could include termination. Jordan sat back. The trap door creaked open beneath his chair. So the outcome is decided. No, Elaine said quickly. This is corrective, not punitive. Jordan reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. He slid it across the table. Not dramatic, just deliberate. What's this? Elaine asked. Emails praising my leadership, Jordan said. From drivers, from supervisors, including you, Brad, dated last month. Brad didn't touch the folder. Elaine flipped it open, eyes scanning, her brow furrowed. Brad. People change, Brad said. Pressure reveals things. Jordan's voice was steady, but his chest burned. Pressure reveals bias too. The word landed heavy. Elaine closed the folder slowly. Jordan, I'm going to document today's discussion and follow up. With what? Jordan asked. A draft PIP, Elaine said. And the names of my accusers? Jordan pressed. Elaine shook her head. Not at this stage. Jordan nodded once. Then I want it noted that I dispute these claims and request an investigation. Brad scoffed. An investigation into what? Discrimination, Jordan said. The room went still. Elaine inhaled. That's a serious allegation. So it's being labeled a problem without proof, Jordan said. Brad stood abruptly. This is getting out of hand. Elaine raised her voice slightly. Brad, sit. Brad hesitated, then sat, jaw tight. Elaine looked at Jordan, neutrality cracking just enough to show strain. I'll escalate this to my supervisor. In the meantime, please continue performing your duties as usual. As usual, Jordan repeated. With access intact? Elaine nodded. For now. Brad muttered, for now. The meeting ended without handshakes. As Jordan walked out, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the glass wall. Composed, professional, exhausted. In the hallway, Tanya waited by the printer, eyes wide. How'd it go? She whispered. Jordan paused, chose his words carefully. They want paper. Tanya swallowed. Be careful. I am, Jordan said, and realized the truth as he walked back to his desk. Paper was exactly what Brad planned to bury him under. By Tuesday afternoon, the warehouse felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just angled. Conversation stopped when Jordan approached. Laughter bent away from him, like a door closing softly but deliberately. He stood by the break room fridge, pretending to read a safety poster he could have recited from memory. Report all incidents. See something. Say something. The words mocked him. Evan walked in, boots scuffing, chewing gum like it owed him money. Yo, Evan said, eyes flicking to Jordan. You good? Jordan turned. I'm fine. Evan smirked. HR meeting yesterday looked intense. Jordan held his gaze. You were there Friday. On the dock. Evan's jaw tightened for half a second. What about it? You raised your voice, Jordan said. You stepped toward the driver. I stepped in. Evan laughed. Man, you always gotta make it sound dramatic. It's not dramatic, Jordan said. It's what happened. Evan leaned back against the counter. Brad says you got issues with authority. Jordan felt the words hit. Not hard, but deep. Brad says a lot. Evan shrugged. Brad looks out for his own. Does he? Jordan asked quietly. Evan's eyes slid away. I don't want problems, man. Jordan nodded once. Neither do I. I want the truth. Evan grabbed a soda and left without answering. Jordan stood there a moment longer, then tossed his untouched lunch in the trash. He found Tanya at her desk, shoulders hunched, typing too fast. Can I ask you something? Jordan said. She didn't look up. I already told Elaine what I saw. Jordan blinked. You talked to HR? She finally met his eyes. Fear lived there, sharp and alive. She asked if anyone noticed tension. I said things got loud. That's it. Did you say I escalated? Jordan asked. Tanya shook her head quickly. No. God, no. But Jordan, Brad's been walking past my desk all morning. Jordan exhaled. I'm not asking you to risk your job. Tanya swallowed. That's what everyone says right before someone loses theirs. Jordan softened his voice. I know. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. People are scared. Brad writes schedules. Overtime. Promotions. You push back, you disappear. Jordan nodded. The system wasn't person. It was incentives. He spent the afternoon moving through names like a map of old favors. Marcus from shipping. Jordan had covered a shift when his mother was sick. I can't, Marcus said immediately, eyes darting. I wasn't there. You were, Jordan said gently. Marcus rubbed his face. I got written up last year for attitude. I can't be on anyone's radar. I get it, Jordan said. And he did. Rachel from logistics avoided him entirely. Pretending to be on a call. A driver texted. Saw some things. Can't talk. Sorry. By 5 o'clock, Jordan understood the shape of it. Brad didn't need lies from everyone. He just needed silence from enough. At home, Jordan sat in his car for a long minute before going inside. His daughter's laughter floated through the open window. Bright, careless. Daddy, she shouted when he walked in. Look what I drew. He crouched, smiled, praised a picture. He cooked dinner. He asked about school. He waited until she was asleep before letting his shoulders sag. His partner, Denise, sat beside him on the couch. You're not eating. I'm not hungry. She studied him. They try and push you out? They already are. Denise closed her eyes. Jordan, I'm not quitting, he said. She nodded, but fear flickered across her face. Just be smart. I am, he said, and wondered if smart was enough. The next morning, Jordan requested access logs to the internal system. Standard procedure for incident review. 2 hours later, an automated reply hit his inbox. Request denied. Insufficient authorization. He forwarded it to Elaine with a single line. Please advise. This relates to the Friday incident. No response. Jordan opened a fresh document and began typing. Not an email, a record. March 14th, 9:02 a.m., Brad Whitman stated multiple employees felt uncomfortable. No names provided. March 14th, 10:31 a.m., HR meeting. PIP proposed without documented complaints. March 15th, 11:47 a.m., access request denied. He wrote until the words steadied him. During afternoon break, Malik from security leaned against a wall near Jordan's station. Off the record, Malik said quietly, eyes scanning. Doc camera 3 covers most of that area. Jordan's pulse kicked. Does it cover Friday? Used to, Malik said. Angles changed last month. Budget thing. Used to, Jordan repeated. Malik hesitated. I didn't say anything. Jordan nodded. You didn't. At 4:18 p.m., Elaine finally replied, We're reviewing next steps. Please refrain from independent inquiries during the process. Independent inquiries. Jordan stared at the phrase. Translation. Stop looking. Brad passed by moments later, stopping just long enough to speak without turning. Careful, Brad said softly. You're starting to look obsessed. Jordan stood. I'm defending myself. Brad smiled. That's what they all say. They? Jordan asked. Brad turned then, eyes cold. People who don't know their place. Jordan's hands curled into fists. My place is doing my job. Brad leaned closer. Your place is where I say it is. They held eye contact, long enough for something to crack between them. Brad straightened. Sign the PIP when it comes. Or don't. Either way, this ends. He walked off, whistling. Jordan sat back down, heart pounding, not from fear but clarity. This wasn't about Friday. This wasn't about tone. This was about control. Jordan opened his document again and added one final line for the day. Witnesses exist. Silence is not absence. It's pressure. He saved the file twice. By Thursday, neutrality had teeth. Jordan felt at the moment. He scanned his badge at 7:02 a.m. The green light blinked, then hesitated, just long enough to make his stomach tighten. Before granting access. System lag. Malik said from the desk. Too quick. Jordan nodded, filing it away. Upstairs, his dashboard loaded half empty. 2 permissions were gone. Routing approvals and overtime adjustments. Tools he'd used daily for years, now locked behind gray icons. He opened his email. Subject. Temporary access adjustment from Elaine Park Body. As part of the ongoing review, certain permissions have been temporarily reassigned to ensure consistency. This is standard practice. Standard practice. Jordan thought, staring at the screen, standard pressure. Brad's office door was open. Brad stood inside, laughing with Evan. The sound cut off when Jordan passed. At 9:30, Elaine called him into HR again. This time, the conference room had 4 chairs. Elaine sat at the head, Brad to her right. An empty chair to her left. Symbolic, Jordan guessed. The absent witness. Thank you for coming. Elaine said, we'll keep this brief. Jordan's Saturday brief is fine. Elaine slid a document across the table. This is a draft performance improvement plan. Brad leaned back, arms crossed, satisfied. Jordan skimmed the first page. Objective. Improve communication tone and reduce perceived intimidation. Perceived. He flipped the page. Metrics. Fewer escalations. Increase peer comfort. Manager discretion. Manager discretion. Jordan looked up. This isn't measurable. Elaine nodded slightly. Behavioral concerns are often subjective. Subjective is another word for unprovable, Jordan said. Brad smiled. Or undeniable. Jordan turned to Elaine. Why were my system permissions removed? Elaine didn't look surprised. To limit variables during review. My job requires those variables. Jordan said. Brad cut in. We'll redistribute responsibilities. Without my input, Jordan said. Elaine folded her hands. Jordan, this is temporary. Jordan leaned forward. Temporary actions have permanent consequences. Elaine held his gaze. I understand this feels frustrating. Feels. Another word doing heavy lifting. Jordan pointed to the document. This claims I escalated Friday. Where's that conclusion from? Elaine glanced at Brad. Brad shrugged. Multiple accounts. Jordan's voice stayed level. Then list them. Elaine shook her head. We're protecting anonymity. While exposing me, Jordan said. Brad sighed. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Jordan laughed once, without humor. You brought an envelope into a private office. You took my access. You drafted a plan without evidence. And you're calling me difficult. Brad's eyes flashed. Watch it. Elaine raised a hand. Let's pause. Jordan closed the folder gently. I'm requesting a formal investigation. Elaine inhaled. That triggers additional review. That's the point, Jordan said. Brad scoffed. You think playing the race card. Elaine snapped. Brad. The word landed like a drop glass. Brad leaned back, jaw tight. I'm just saying he's misinterpreting intent. Jordan's voice was quiet. Intent doesn't erase impact. Elaine rubbed her temple. Okay, I'll escalate to corporate HR. In the meantime, the PIP stands. Jordan stared at her. You're asking me to sign something that presumes guilt. It's not an admission. Elaine said. Then remove the language. Jordan replied. Elaine hesitated. I can't alter it without approval. Brad smiled again. See? Process. Jordan pushed the document back. I won't sign. Elaine nodded slowly. That's your right. And my access? Jordan asked. Elaine's voice dropped. Remains adjusted. Brad stood. Meeting over. Jordan rose too. I'll be documenting everything. Brad leaned close enough for only Jordan to hear. You should focus on your tone. Jordan met his eyes. You should focus on the truth. Brad straightened, mask back on. Escort him out. Elaine stiffened. Brad, No one's being escorted. Brad shrugged. Habit. Jordan left without another word. By noon, the consequences multiplied. His schedule changed. Split shifts now, breaking the rhythm he'd built. 2 tasks reassigned midstream. An email from Elaine advising him to route all decisions through Brad for alignment. Alignment felt like a choke chain. At his desk, Tanya slid him a sticky note without looking. I saw something. Jordan waited until she'd gone to the restroom before reading the rest, written smaller beneath. Friday, Brad deleted emails. After the doc thing, Jordan's pulse thudded. He typed back to Elaine carefully. I'm requesting preservation of all records related to Friday's incident, including emails, logs, and footage. This is part of my formal complaint. Minutes later, a reply. IT is reviewing availability. Please refrain from speculation. Speculation. Another word to blur lines. At 3:07, Jordan's access to the incident request portal was removed entirely. He stood and walked to Malik's desk. Is my badge still good? Jordan asked quietly. Malik hesitated. Yeah, for now. Jordan nodded. If that changes... I'll tell you, Malik said, not meeting his eyes. After work, Jordan drove across town to a legal aid clinic tucked between a laundromat and a closed daycare. The waiting room buzzed with low voices and tired hope. A young attorney named Rosa listened without interrupting. This is classic, Rosa said finally. Coded language. Retaliation disguised as process. Can I win? Jordan asked. Rosa didn't flinch. Winning depends on proof. Documentation. Patterns. I'm documenting, Jordan said. Good, Rosa replied. And don't quit. That's what they want. Jordan nodded. I know. Back at Riverton the next morning, Brad stood in the aisle, clipboard in hand. Morning, Jordan, Brad said loudly. We'll need to talk about yesterday. Jordan stopped. With HR present, Brad smiled thinly. Always with the formalities. Always with the witnesses. Jordan said. Brad leaned in, voice low. You think corporate's going to save you? They protect the company. Jordan met his gaze. So am I. Brad straightened. Careful. Jordan sat at his desk and opened his record. He added another entry. Retaliation escalated. Access removed. Schedule altered. Language shifting from performance to compliance. As he typed, an email notification popped up. From corporate HR subject. Notice of review. Jordan stared at the subject line. Heart racing. Neutrality had shown its face. Now it was being asked to look up. The body kept score even when the mouth stayed calm. Jordan felt it first in his jaw, tight all day, aching at night, then in his chest, a constant pressure like he was bracing for impact that never came and never stopped not coming. By Friday morning, he'd slept in fragments, waking to emails that hadn't arrived and conversations that hadn't happened yet. At work, the floor moved around him without a minute. A routing issue flared at 8:17. Jordan saw the fix immediately, an easy reroute that would save 2 hours and a driver's temper. He reached for the approval button and met the gray lock again. He walked to Brad's office. Brad didn't look up. Put in an email. It's time sensitive, Jordan said. Brad kept typing. Email. Jordan stood there, heat crawling up his neck. A driver's going to miss a window. Brad smiled at his screen. Learning opportunity. Jordan turned away before he said something that would be used against him. The driver missed the window. The delay was logged. At noon, Jordan was CC'd on an email about avoidable inefficiencies. Tone, Jordan thought. That's what they called it. At lunch, he sat alone. The break room TV played a daytime talk show. People clapping on cue, outrage package with commercials. Jordan stared at his sandwich until the bread went stale in his hands. Malik passed by, slowed. You holding up? Yeah, Jordan said. Malik nodded, then leaned closer. Brad's asking about badge audits. Jordan's stomach dropped. My badge. Everyone's, Malik said quickly. Probably nothing. Probably. At home, the costs arrive in quieter ways. Jordan missed pickup. Denise covered, her voice tight on the phone. Traffic. Work, Jordan said. Denise sighed. Jordan. I know. That night, their daughter, Nia, climbed onto his lap with a book. Halfway through the story, she looked up. You mad? No, baby, Jordan said. Just tired. She traced a line between his eyebrows. You look like this. He smiled for her. When she went to bed, the smile didn't come off easily. Denise poured tea and sat across from him. You don't have to be a hero. I'm not, Jordan said. I'm just not lying. She reached for his hand. They can ruin you. Jordan squeezed back. Only if I let them tell the story. Monday morning brought corporate HR. 2 visitors in neutral suits, badges flipped backward. They introduced themselves as Hannah and Luis. Their smiles were professional, their questions precise. We're here to understand the process, Hannah said, not to assign blame. Brad nodded enthusiastically. Transparency is important. Jordan watched how Brad positioned himself. Open, cooperative, rehearsed. Hannah turned to Jordan. Can you describe how this began? Jordan did, starting with the envelope. Brad interrupted twice. Hannah raised a finger each time. Let him finish, she said. When Jordan described the access removal, Luis frowned. Was that documented? Elaine spoke up. It's standard. Standard requires policy citation, Luis said. Elaine hesitated. Jordan felt a flicker, small, dangerous hope. After the meeting, Brad cornered Jordan by the lockers. You think that went well? Brad asked. I think the truth doesn't need coaching, Jordan said. Brad leaned in. You're embarrassing the team. Jordan's voice dropped. You embarrass yourself. Brad's smile hardened. Careful. People who make noise don't last. Jordan met his eyes. People who hide behind systems don't either. Brad straightened. We'll see. By midweek, the pressure shifted. Elaine emailed Jordan to say his schedule would revert temporarily. Access remained restricted, but a small concession had been made. The floor felt less tilted, but not level. Then Tanya stopped by, eyes darting. I shouldn't, she whispered. Jordan closed his screen. You don't have to. I saw Brad Friday night, Tanya said. After everyone left, he was in his office, deleting emails. Jordan's pulse jumped. What kind of emails? I don't know, Tanya said, but he looked nervous. Jordan nodded. Did you tell HR? Tanya shook her head. I can't afford to be brave. I won't ask you to be, Jordan said, but write down what you saw. Date, time, for yourself. Tanya swallowed. Okay. Later that afternoon, an anonymous message hit Jordan's phone. No number, just text. Brad's done this before. Ask about Site B, 2021. Jordan stared at the screen. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of it. A pattern wasn't a rumor. It was a map. He forwarded the message to Rosa, the legal aid attorney, with a single line. Is this usable? Her reply came fast. It's a lead. Don't ignore it. Thursday brought the cost into the open. A meeting invite popped up for 4 p.m. Check-in, Brad Whitman. No HR. Jordan declined and replied. CCNG Corporate HR. Happy to meet with HR present. 5 minutes later, Brad stormed to his desk. You don't get to dictate terms, Brad hissed. I get to protect myself, Jordan said. Brad laughed. You think you're special? No, Jordan said. I think I'm right. Brad leaned close enough that Jordan could smell coffee and anger. You're not worth this trouble. Jordan stood, then stopped making it. They froze there, the office holding its breath. Brad backed away first. That night, Jordan sat alone in the car again. He pulled out his phone and opened his record. Retaliation persists. Witness intimidation ongoing. Anonymous lead suggests prior pattern. Emotional toll escalating. He paused and added, despite fear, truth expanding. He saved the file. Then he opened a new email and began drafting a formal request, one that named dates, policies, and patterns, one that would force the system to answer on paper. Inside the house, Denise's light flicked on. Jordan took a breath, steadying himself. Speaking had a cost. Silence had a higher one. The request went in at 8:03 a.m. Jordan watched the sent confirmation sit in his outbox like a dare. Subject: Formal record preservation and evidence request 2. Corporate HR, Elaine Park CC, Legal Internal, Site Leadership. He'd written it with Rosa's guidance. Dates, policy numbers, neutral language sharpened into a blade. No accusations, just facts demanding air. By 9:30, the response arrived. We acknowledge receipt. IT is reviewing availability of requested materials. Availability. Jordan tasted the word. Evidence didn't disappear. It was removed. On the floor, the dock buzzed louder than usual. Jordan stood near dock 3, eyes drawn to the camera dome above. Malik had said the angle changed last month. Budget thing. At 10:12, Malik approached him, clipboard hugged tight. Walk with me, Malik murmured. They moved toward the loading bay, footsteps swallowed by engine noise. Off the record, Malik said again. Cameras don't forget. People do. Jordan's pulse jumped. Is the footage there? Malik shook his head once. Primary feed's gone. Overwritten. Jordan's chest tightened. Policy is 90 days. Malik glanced away. There's redundancy. Nightly backups. Where? Malik stopped. I can't say. Jordan nodded. I didn't ask. Malik exhaled. Be careful. At noon, Elaine emailed. IT confirms the relevant footage is unavailable due to routine overwriting. Routine. Jordan forwarded the email to Rosa. This contradicts retention policy. Her reply came quick. Ask for a written confirmation of policy exception and backups. Jordan typed, please confirm retention policy applied and whether backups exist. 3 minutes later, Brad appeared at his desk. You stirring the pot? Brad asked lightly. I'm following process, Jordan said. Brad smiled. Process is flexible. Jordan looked up. So is exposure. Brad's smile faded. You think you're smarter than everyone? I think you made a mistake, Jordan said. Brad leaned closer. You don't want to find out how replaceable you are. Jordan's voice was calm. I already know. Brad straightened, jaw tight. Sign the PIP. No, Jordan said. Brad laughed, short and sharp, then enjoy the ride. That afternoon, corporate HR called Jordan into a video meeting. Hannah and Luis reappeared, faces serious. We received conflicting information, Hannah said, regarding footage retention. Luis added, we need clarity. Today, Jordan nodded. Policy requires 90-day retention. I'm requesting written justification for deviation. Elaine appeared on screen, flustered. IT informed me the feed was overwritten. Luis's eyes narrowed. Backups. Elaine hesitated. I'll check. Brad cut in from off-screen. This is a waste of resources. Hannah turned sharply. Brad, please let HR manage. Brad's voice went cold. My site, my call. Hannah's expression hardened. Not during an investigation. Silence. Luis spoke. We'll pause this call for 1 hour. IT will verify backups. The screen went dark. Jordan sat alone, hands shaking, not from fear now, but anticipation. At 3:18, his phone buzzed. A number he didn't recognize. Check your email. M. Jordan opened his inbox. Subject. Backup retrieval confirmation from IT systems. Nightly backup from dock cameras exists for date requested. Retrieval in progress. Jordan closed his eyes. Air rushed back into his lungs. Minutes later, Brad stormed past his desk, face red. He didn't stop this time. The footage arrived at 4:02. Jordan didn't watch it alone. Hannah and Luis reconvened the call. Elaine paled beside them. Brad joined late, camera off. Let's review, Hannah said. The video played. Grainy, soundless, clear enough. Evan's arms flailing. The driver stepping back. Jordan entering the frame. Hands up, his mouth moving, calm, measured. Evan lunging forward again. Jordan stepping between them. Palm out. No aggression. No escalation. Then another clip later that day. Brad at the vending machines. Evan beside him. Brad laughing, mimicking Jordan's posture. A joke, without sound but heavy with meaning. The room stayed silent when the video ended. Louis spoke first. This contradicts the written claims. Elaine swallowed. I wasn't aware of this clip. Brad's voice cut in, sharp. This is out of context. Hannah's eyes didn't blink. Context helps you. This doesn't. Jordan felt something inside him loosen, not victory. Validation. Luis leaned forward. We're expanding the scope. There are inconsistencies in documentation. Brad scoffed. You're overreacting. Hannah's tone was ice. Brad, stop. Another clip queued up. Email logs. Timestamps. A cursor hovering over a delete icon in Brad's sent folder. Elaine's face drained the color. This appears to show email deletion during an active review, Luis said. Brad's camera snapped on. That's not what that is. Hannah raised a hand. Brad, your access is suspended pending investigation. Silence thundered. Brad laughed, disbelieving. You can't do that. Hannah's voice was steady. We just did. Jordan sat back, heart pounding. He wasn't smiling. He felt tired. Heavy. Hannah turned to him. Jordan, thank you for your patience. Patience, Jordan thought. A word that asked too much. The call ended. Elaine remained on screen. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Jordan met her eyes. Sorry doesn't restore what you took. She nodded. I know. That evening, Jordan stood outside the building as Brad was escorted out, badge clipped, box in hand. No shouting, no scene, just a soft collapse of certainty. Brad glanced at Jordan once. Hatred flickered, then fear. Jordan didn't wave. He didn't gloat. He turned and walked to his car. On his phone, a new email waited. Subject, scope expansion, prior complaints review. Jordan leaned back, staring at the sky darkening above the parking lot. The footage hadn't shouted. It had simply shown the truth. The following Monday, Jordan arrived at Riverton with a quiet sense of anticipation. The warehouse floor hummed, but the tension felt different, less like a trap and more like an audience waiting for the right moment. Corporate HR had formally taken over the review. Hannah and Luis were now on site, their presence subtle but unmistakably authoritative. Elaine greeted Jordan with a nod that suggested regret or maybe relief. She avoided Brad. He was no longer on site. For the first time, Jordan felt the shift. Power was no longer entirely in the hands of the person who had tormented him. The morning meeting was brief. Hannah addressed the warehouse supervisors first, then invited Jordan to give a concise account of Friday's incident. He described it again, the yelling, the driver backing up, Evan's raised voice, and his own hands raised in calm intervention. He emphasized timing, sequence, and factual behaviors, avoiding emotion except where it clarified his intent. Hannah listened attentively, eyes never leaving him, while Luis recorded notes meticulously. When Jordan finished, Hannah turned to the supervisors. Were there any formal complaints filed prior to this? She asked. The room held its breath. A few heads shifted. Some fingers twisted pens nervously. Then, quietly, one of the senior warehouse staff spoke. Marcus, I think there was something, Marcus said, voice low. Last year, about another employee. Brad handled it himself. Never went to HR. Another employee, Sharon added. He deletes emails sometimes. We've noticed it after incidents. Jordan's pulse quickened. Silence in the room stretched. Corporate HR exchanged glances. Hannah nodded. Can you give specifics? Dates? Times? Marcus hesitated. I don't want trouble. You won't, Jordan said softly. I'm not asking you to protect me, only to tell the truth. Sharon swallowed, then spoke. The night shift cameras. Some footage was deleted. Backups sometimes exist, sometimes not. Elaine's lips parted. She hadn't expected anyone to speak, and the weight of their confessions was visible in her posture. Luis leaned forward. Thank you. This is helpful. It aligns with documentation and anomalies in the system logs. One by one, other staff offered corroborating information. Some admitted they had been coached on what to say. Others admitted fear of retaliation. The pattern emerged. Brad had quietly cultivated a system of silence, one that insulated him from accountability. Jordan's documentation, combined with the newly surfaced backup footage, was finally converging with witness statements. Hannah turned to Jordan. "We will now expand the investigation to examine prior incidents under Brad's supervision. This is to ensure a full understanding of patterns and possible violations." Jordan nodded. "I've noted dates and emails that suggest a pattern." Elaine finally spoke. "Jordan, this is more serious than I realized. I should have escalated sooner." Jordan didn't answer. Words weren't enough. Not yet. Instead, he returned his attention to the screen, where IT had displayed the retrieved footage from Doc 3, the email logs, and timestamps showing Brad's interactions and deletions. Every action, every interference, was now documented and visible. Brad was called into a separate interview, though not in the same room. Corporate HR allowed Jordan to observe only through security cameras, a subtle but deliberate psychological move. Jordan watched Brad flinch at questions about email deletions, his mouth twitching as he tried to recover his rehearsed statements. Each lie he attempted was met with concrete evidence, contradicting him in real time. At one point, Brad muttered, almost inaudibly, "It's just work." Luis caught the movement. "It's about policy, documentation, and fairness, Brad, not perception." Jordan allowed himself a long breath. This was what he'd been building toward. Not vengeance, not triumph, but recognition of truth. After the interviews concluded, Hannah gathered Jordan and Elaine. "Jordan, corporate will now require a full audit of Brad's previous site complaints, emails, and system access. Any deviation from policy will be documented, and appropriate actions will follow." Jordan nodded. The room felt quieter, somehow, though the hum of the warehouse still pressed against the walls. The weight he had carried, the silence, the small betrayals, the constant monitoring, was starting to shift. Patterns he had feared might remain invisible were now exposed. Elaine stepped closer, voice soft. "I'm sorry for my part in this. I didn't see what was happening as clearly as I should have." Jordan nodded, but he didn't forgive her yet. Apologies couldn't undo months of erosion, the sleepless nights, or the emotional toll. They could, however, serve as acknowledgement, a first step toward correction. As he returned to his desk, Jordan checked his inbox. Another notification from IT confirmed that all requested backups had been secured and flagged for review. Every piece of evidence he had feared lost was now part of the investigation. Tanya appeared briefly at his side, her eyes wide. They're actually listening." Jordan nodded. It took time, but yes. She offered a small smile and slipped back to her desk. Jordan allowed himself a moment to feel relief, but it was tempered by awareness. The process had begun, but it wasn't complete. The work ahead was still heavy, still uncertain. Later, in a private note to Rosa, Jordan summarized everything. Witness statements, retrieved footage, email deletions, prior incidents. The file was comprehensive. Patterns were visible, not just suspicion. This was no longer a single fight. It was a systemic revelation. By 5:30 p.m., the warehouse was quieter than usual. The evening sun slanted across the floor, golden light casting long shadows. Jordan looked around, taking in the familiar hum of machinery, the subtle movements of co-workers who now felt safer to exist without fear. He understood, at that moment, how fragile courage could be, how dependent it was on proof, presence, and persistence. Jordan leaned back in his chair, eyes on the ceiling tiles. For the first time in months, he felt a measure of agency returning. The system that had seemed invincible had cracks, and those cracks were starting to show. The truth had allies now, evidence, witnesses, and corporate HR prepared to follow procedure. He exhaled slowly. There would be no shortcuts, no instant resolutions. But for the first time, he could see the path forward. The story wasn't finished, but it was finally being told. The investigation had finally looked up, and the first rays of accountability were beginning to shine through the cracks. The week began with Brad Whitman still striding down the corridors like he owned the building. By midweek, the strut had faltered. By Thursday morning, it had disappeared entirely. Corporate HR's presence was no longer subtle. Hannah and Luis, together with IT and legal, had begun auditing every log, email, and prior complaint associated with Brad. The shift was palpable. Brad moved like a man aware of every camera and microphone he'd once ignored. Jordan arrived early, watching Brad enter the break room with a forced grin. He had been briefed that morning. Every prior incident had been logged, inconsistencies documented, and the deletion of Friday's emails flagged as tampering. Hannah called a site-wide meeting. All employees gathered in the warehouse's main hall. Jordan noticed a tension in the air, supervisors avoiding eye contact, staff shifting on their feet. Corporate HR's authority filled the room, calm, unyielding. Brad entered last, clipboard in hand, attempting to mask the anxiety in a confident posture. "Hannah," Brad began, voice tight, "I assure you I've done nothing wrong." Hannah's gaze was steady. "Brad, evidence and witness accounts suggest otherwise. Deletions of emails, misrepresentations of incidents, and coaching employees on what to say are all on record." A murmur ran through the crowd. Jordan's eyes swept over familiar faces. Those who had stayed silent, those who had risked speaking. Now the silence broke. Luis added, "We are auditing all decisions under your supervision. Any deviation from policy will result in corrective action." Brad's smile flickered, then vanished. "Corrective action? I've managed teams for years." "For years, yes," Hannah interrupted. "And for years, complaints were handled informally, often outside of proper documentation. Those days are over. Today, accountability is transparent." Jordan felt a tight knot in his chest. This wasn't vengeance. It wasn't drama. It was consequence. Elaine stepped forward. "Jordan, thank you for your persistence and documentation. It has made this possible." Her voice carried both apology and gravity. Jordan nodded silently. He had waited for this, but he knew the emotional toll wasn't finished. Brad shifted on his feet. "This is outrageous. You can't just—" Luis raised a hand. "Please refrain from interruption. We will follow procedure." The room grew still. Even the forklift seemed quieter. Every eye was on Brad as Hannah continued. "We've reviewed emails, video footage, and witness statements. They consistently contradict the claims made in Friday's PIP and prior concerns. This constitutes misuse of managerial authority and breach of policy." Brad's face reddened. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Words failed him. Jordan's gaze met his. There was no triumph, only observation. The man who had tried to define Jordan's career, manipulate perception, and coerce resignation was unmasked by his own patterns. Hannah continued, "Given the extent of these findings, Brad Whitman will be removed from supervisory duties effective immediately. A full review of prior site decisions will follow to ensure remediation." Gasps ran through the room. Jordan saw co-workers glance at one another, some relieved, some shocked at how swiftly consequences could manifest when systems intervened. Brad stepped back, muttering something under his breath. Hannah pressed on. "This is not personal. It is procedural. Policies exist to ensure fairness and accountability for everyone." Jordan exhaled. Relief hit him in waves, but it was mingled with exhaustion. Months of stress, fear, and uncertainty had led to this point. He remembered Friday's dock incident, the envelope, the denied access, the quiet fear that followed him through corridors and break rooms. Brad's collapse wasn't cinematic. There was no shouting match or public humiliation. There was only the steady unveiling of truth. Emails retrieved, footage reviewed, patterns documented, and the invisible walls of silence finally crumbling. Elaine turned to Jordan. "I want to acknowledge my part in this. I allowed neutrality to appear as compliance. I didn't act quickly enough." Jordan nodded. "I appreciate your acknowledgement. Actions matter more than words." She swallowed. "Yes, and I will ensure records are corrected, policies reinforced, and staff understand the channels for reporting concerns." Jordan glanced at his colleagues. Some whispered encouragement. Others simply nodded. Tanya gave him a small, almost imperceptible smile. It was enough. Brad stood alone in the corner, a box now in his hands, belongings packed for removal. No one approached him. No one cheered. The room felt charged, but with order restored. Hannah addressed the team one final time. "Let this be a reminder. Policy and fairness guide our work. Transparency protects us all. Deviations will not be tolerated. Jordan's hands unclenched. The oppressive weight that had followed him all week eased slightly. The process had been long, tedious, and emotionally draining, but accountability had arrived not as spectacle but as inevitability. After the meeting, Jordan returned to his desk. He opened his notes, reviewing the events of the past months. The envelope, the denied access, the microaggressions, the PIP, the deleted footage. Each was a link in a chain that had, for once, been broken. A ping from his inbox drew his attention. An email from corporate HR. Subject: Next steps, policy reinforcement, and record correction. Jordan read the message. Records would be amended to reflect accurate accounts. Prior complaints would be formally reviewed, and staff would receive clarification on reporting protocols. The organization was taking steps to prevent the patterns he had endured from recurring. He leaned back in his chair. Victory wasn't a fist raised. It wasn't revenge. It was acknowledgement, correction, and the painstaking restoration of order. Outside, the sun slanted across the warehouse windows, painting long shadows on the floor. Jordan felt the weight of months of fear and silence, still lingering, but the horizon seemed lighter now. Brad's downfall was procedural, meticulous, and thorough, a cause-and-effect cascade built from evidence and persistence. Jordan didn't celebrate. He only exhaled, letting the storm within him settle, knowing that while justice had arrived, scars remained. As he prepared to leave for the day, Jordan glanced around the floor one last time. The warehouse buzzed as usual, but the oppressive tension had eased. People moved with slightly more confidence, a subtle shift that suggested hope. The collapse had been comprehensive, not explosive, but complete. Brad Whitman, once untouchable, was now a cautionary lesson, a reminder that systems could fail, but truth, when documented and pursued, would eventually assert itself. Jordan shut down his computer, gathered his things, and walked toward the exit. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt steady, grounded, ready for whatever came next. The air outside Riverton Distribution that Monday morning was crisp, carrying a promise of clarity. Jordan parked his car, hands resting lightly on the steering wheel, breathing it in. For the first time in months, the building didn't feel like a cage. It felt ordinary. Inside, the hallways hummed with the usual activity. Forklifts beeped, the intercom crackled, and supervisors moved with quiet efficiency. But Jordan noticed subtle shifts. Co-workers standing a little straighter, nodding as he passed. Conversations resuming without hesitation when he joined. The ripples of accountability were visible in the way space was now shared without fear. At his desk, an envelope waited. Not the ominous, manila one of months past, but official correspondence from corporate HR. He opened it carefully, scanning the contents. Confirmation of record corrections, acknowledgement of procedural missteps, and a formal notification that Brad Whitman had been terminated. His employment ended for policy violations, documented deletions, and repeated patterns of harassment. No celebratory language. No unnecessary flourish. Just the truth laid out in precise, unemotional terms. Tanya appeared at his side, hesitating. "Jordan," she said softly. He looked up. "Yeah, you did it," she whispered, almost incredulous. "You stayed. You spoke. And they had to listen." Jordan gave her a small, tired smile. It wasn't easy, but someone had to document it. Someone had to hold the line. She nodded, eyes glimmering. "I'm proud of you." The relief was tempered by memory. Every sleepless night, every pang of fear, every moment he considered quitting weighed against this day. Victory wasn't triumph in the cinematic sense. It was survival validated by procedure, justice measured by meticulous documentation, not applause. Elaine approached, her steps hesitant. "Jordan, can I talk to you for a moment?" He nodded. They stepped aside, away from desks and co-workers. "I want to apologize," she said, "for not acting sooner, for not seeing how things were unfolding. Neutrality on my part allowed Brad's actions to persist." Jordan listened, silent. Words were acknowledgement, not erasure. "I understand that forgiveness isn't possible," she continued, "but I'll ensure records reflect your diligence and that staff understand their rights moving forward." Jordan exhaled. Acknowledgement is a start, but awareness is better. Change is the goal. That's what matters. Elaine nodded, relieved, and left. Jordan returned to his desk and opened a fresh email from corporate HR. They were scheduling policy reinforcement workshops, system audits, and training sessions to prevent the recurrence of patterns he had endured. He noticed, with a quiet satisfaction, that his access had been fully restored, along with a note confirming that all prior PIP claims were nullified and removed from his record. He leaned back, taking a moment to reflect. Justice had arrived through evidence, persistence, and procedure, not through confrontation or theatrics. Brad's career had collapsed not with dramatics, but through cause and effect, documentation, witnesses, and corporate accountability. It was procedural, thorough, and unavoidable. Later, he gathered his things to leave for the day. Nia's glittery backpack, still untouched from the weekend, reminded him of home, of why he had endured months of stress. Denise would be waiting, and for the first time in a long while, he could walk out of the building without a knot of dread in his chest. As he stepped into the sunlight, Jordan felt the weight of experience settle, not like a burden, but like armor. The months of tension had left marks, emotional scars that wouldn't vanish overnight. But they had also honed his awareness, sharpened his resolve, and reinforced his belief in due process and persistence. Outside, he pulled his phone from his pocket. A message from Rosa. Well done. Evidence, patience, persistence. Recorded and validated. You've set an example. He typed back simply, it's not over, but it's right. The walk home was calm. Jordan carried himself differently, not lighter, but steadier. Each step toward the car, each turn of the wheel, reminded him that survival wasn't just about endurance. It was about strategy, documentation, and courage in the face of systemic pressure. By the time he reached his neighborhood, the evening sky had begun to fade into soft hues of purple and gold. Nia ran to greet him, arms wide. Her laughter, free and unguarded, filled the air. Jordan scooped her up, spinning her briefly before setting her down. How's school? He asked, smiling genuinely. Good. And guess what? I got an A on my science project. That's amazing, he said, ruffling her hair. I'm proud of you. Denise appeared at the door, carrying groceries. She studied him, eyes soft. You did it, she said quietly. I did what I had to, Jordan replied. But it's not just me. Documentation, witnesses, procedure, they did their part too. They entered the house together, the quiet rhythm of domestic life reclaiming its space. Jordan placed his bag down, checked in on emails one last time, and allowed himself a rare, deep breath. Brad's downfall had been procedural, not dramatic, and yet its consequences were profound. Truth had been acknowledged, accountability enforced, and a culture of fear disrupted. Jordan understood that the scars of his battle would remain, but so would the knowledge that persistence, patience, and precision could prevail against systemic abuse. As he tucked Nia into bed that night, she whispered, Daddy, are you okay now? Jordan kissed her forehead, feeling the weight of months settle gently. I'm okay, baby. We're okay. He turned off the light and sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, reflecting on the journey. Justice had been measured, not loud, but it had come. The abuser had faced consequences. The system had begun to repair, and he had survived intact. Scarred but resilient, the night was quiet. But inside Jordan, a steady pulse of hope carried him forward. The fight had been long and costly, but the truth had endured. And for the first time in months, he allowed himself to believe that the world, while imperfect, could bend toward fairness when courage met evidence. He rose, heading to the kitchen for a glass of water, carrying with him not just the relief of vindication, but the weight of experience, the clarity of resilience, and the quiet satisfaction of a battle fought correctly and won. Not through spectacle, but through unwavering truth. The story was over. The system had corrected itself. And Jordan Miles, though changed, had emerged unbroken. 2 months had passed since Brad Whitman's termination. The warehouse at Riverton Distribution had returned to its hum of forklifts, pallets, and beeping scanners, but it no longer carried the weight of fear. Jordan Miles noticed at the moment he stepped inside. Laughter in the break room, casual greetings in the hallways, and co-workers who no longer flinched when he approached. Yet, Jordan carried something heavier than the building itself. The memory of months spent under surveillance, The envelope slid across Brad's desk, the denied access, the constant microaggressions. Every moment of fear had left an imprint. Survival had its cost. He walked past the shipping floor, greeting drivers and supervisors. Each nod and smile a small acknowledgement of resilience. Some glanced at him with admiration. Others avoided eye contact, still hesitant, still wary. Jordan knew fear lingered longer than justice. At his desk, a folder awaited him. Corporate HR had sent a final notice confirming the correction of records. His PIP was nullified, access fully restored, and documentation amended to reflect the truth of Friday's incident and the broader investigation. The language was precise, sterile, and clinical. No celebration, no commentary, just validation. Jordan opened the folder carefully, taking the weight of months compressed into paper. He reflected on the chain of events. Brad's misuse of authority, Elaine's neutrality that had bordered on complicity, the silences of co-workers, and the hidden allies, Malik's discreet confirmations, Tanya's notes, and the anonymous tip pointing to Brad's prior misconduct. Each piece had been a brick in a structure that finally held truth. Tanya peered aside. Her posture relaxed for the first time in months. "It's done," she said softly. "Not done," Jordan replied, "but corrected. That's enough for now." She offered a small smile. "Do you feel lighter?" "Not lighter," he said. "Steadier." He paused, fingers tracing the edge of the folder. But the weight doesn't vanish just because justice arrived. Jordan remembered Nia's glittery backpack, Denise's worried eyes, the nights he spent reviewing emails until dawn, and the months of micro-adjustments. Careful words, careful tone, careful survival. Each act of persistence had been a step on a tightrope. The phone buzzed. It was Rosa, the attorney. "Congratulations. Evidence preserved. Justice procedural. Your record is now accurate." Jordan typed back, "It's a start. The rest is living with it." Because living with it was real. Months of stress, hours of anxiety, and moments of terror couldn't be undone. But they could be acknowledged. They could become lessons. Lessons in courage, documentation, and the perseverance required when systems fail those they're meant to protect. Later that day, corporate HR held a small training session in the warehouse for staff. Clarity on reporting channels, the importance of documentation, and methods for escalating concerns safely. Jordan watched his co-workers engage cautiously at first, then with more confidence, asking questions and sharing insights. Change, he realized, was slow but visible. After the session, he found himself in the break room with Tanya. "Feels different," she said. "People actually talk." Jordan nodded. "It's not perfect, but silence no longer rules." They sat for a moment, sipping lukewarm coffee, observing the subtle shifts in culture. Staff now moved without fear of arbitrary reprimand, and whispers of prior intimidation were replaced with practical questions and cautious advice. That evening, Jordan drove home, the city lights stretching before him. He thought of Nia waiting, of Denise's soft smile, and the life he had fought to protect. It wasn't just about survival at work. It was about the integrity of his home, the trust he had preserved for his family, and the example he set for his daughter. Courage in the face of systemic bias. At home, Nia bounded to him. "Daddy, look at my drawing." Jordan crouched, smiling, ruffling her hair. "It's incredible, baby. You're talented." She leaned against him, oblivious to the months of tension and subtle warfare he had endured. Jordan hugged her tightly, feeling both relief and lingering exhaustion. He knew the emotional scars would remain, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the vigilance, but he had survived intact. Denise joined them, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did what you had to," she said quietly. "You protected us all." Jordan nodded. "It wasn't just me. Documentation, witnesses, policy, they all mattered. Courage alone wouldn't have been enough." She squeezed his shoulder. "Still, I'm proud of you." Jordan sat back, letting the moment settle. He understood now that victories like this weren't fireworks. They were careful, methodical, procedural. Brad's downfall hadn't been explosive or theatrical. It was meticulous, inevitable, and founded on facts, evidence, and the persistence of someone unwilling to disappear quietly. Later, When Nia slept and Denise rested, Jordan sat alone with his notes and records. He reviewed every email, every witness statement, every log. Each one told a story not just what had happened, but what could happen when systems fail to act, when fear silences voices, and when persistence refuses to yield. The fight had ended. Brad was gone. Records corrected. Policies reinforced. Yet Jordan understood the cost. The emotional labor, the anxiety, and the vigilance required to survive. The victory was procedural, but survival was personal. Finally, he placed the folder on his desk and leaned back. The house was quiet. Outside, the city moved oblivious to the battles fought within office walls. Jordan closed his eyes, letting the tension drain from his shoulders. He had endured months of intimidation, microaggressions, and systemic bias. He had fought not just for himself, but for every voice silenced by fear. And now, for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to feel a measure of peace. The story wasn't glamorous. It wasn't cinematic, but it was real and the consequences were clear. Truth, persistence, and evidence had prevailed. Jordan Miles, though scarred and weary, had survived, and in doing so, had changed the system, even if only a little. He rose, stretching, feeling the weight of survival settle not like a burden but like armor. And as he finally headed to bed, he carried with him not only relief, but the quiet certainty that while systems could fail, courage paired with truth could endure. The world hadn't changed entirely, but Jordan had, and that mattered.